You are listening to the New American Media.
Live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles to be specific. Hello and welcome everybody. This is the Unhappy Hour here on thenewamericanmedia.com. I'm going to be your host, Brian Engelman. Hello and welcome. Hi, howdy. What is going on? What's going on? The NBA draft is going on. Well, it's actually over. But that's what's going on is we're talking about the NBA draft. We're going to have Super Scout Zak Baris on our program. Zak has been a regular on the Unhappy Hour since our inception because, you know, Zak, he's a... Well, I think you know Zak at this point. He's only been in the program for about a year and a half, give or take. He is a lifelong Cleveland sports fan, and he is an NBA scout. So yesterday, what we're going to do, I kind of want to get into the experience. I want to get the behind the scenes. What is the war room like? What is the whole experience like when you're... That's what I'm saying. It's just the war room. I don't know how else to describe it. When you have 15 people in there and everything's happening and trades are happening and phones are ringing and text messages are going off and, you know, you're trying to make sense of the whole process. You know, that's what I want to talk with Zak about. Of course, I also want to talk about Anthony Bennett. Anthony Bennett. Number one to the Cleveland Cavaliers. What is this, the third year in a row now? Chris Grant has shocked the world. That gentleman is leaving a legacy. And we're not really going to know what it is until he's done. That's the thing about legacies. You never know. You never really know how things are going to work out. But that's the point. When do you ever know how things are going to work out in advance? You never do. You either jump into the pool or you never experience it. You either taste a strawberry or you can read about it in a book. You know, you either tried your hand at a relationship or you don't. You know, so you draft players. Now, Greg Oden, he's been viewed in many circles as one of the biggest busts of all time. Not necessarily because of his playing ability, because of his health. We're talking about health. Not a game, not the game. I'm talking about health. I miss Allen Iverson's quote, playoffs, and Jim Moore. But anyway, I digress. You never know how drafts are going to happen. I mean, Kyrie Irving, it looks like a sure thing. Wow, what a great pick. Chris Grant's a genius. Well, I mean, I don't know. Has he finished blossoming yet? His story's not done. His story's still being written. Tristan Thompson, what's his story? Deion Waiters, what's his story? We don't know yet. You know, so for everyone that wants to fly off the handle, love it or hate it, either way, on the draft, you have no way of knowing yet. Relax. This is all fun. It's all just a game. Not a game. I'm talking about practice, man. Practice. What are we talking about? Anyway, that is one of my favorite quotes of all time. The conversation with Allen Iverson in the media talking about playoffs and practice. Anyhow, back to what's going on. We're going to get Zak in just a second. Real quick reminder, thank you to everybody on every single medium that you are following us upon. We're only, oh boy, got to try to remember my stats offhand. We are like 2,000 or 3,000 video views away from 100,000 on youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. Go by, check it out. We have 2 years of archived content. Look around. There's got to be something you're into. Got to be something. Politics, sports, spirituality. Just look around. There's a lot of stuff over there, so thank you. Thank you to the tens of thousands following us on Twitter. I don't know, we're 30,000, 31,000, I don't know. It's north of 30 grand. And that's pretty sweet. In fact, Zak was saying, because yesterday, you know what, and I'll do this. I'll tell you exactly what we're referencing, because yesterday during the draft, here are a couple things. I'll tell you what, let me get Zak into the program, and I'll tell you some of the things that Zak tweeted out. He had a few comments to me prior to the show, and apparently a lot of our listeners had some very strong opinions on the draft and went right back at Zak. So, all right, without further, I'll bring these up. I'll read you word for word what Zak had to say, and I think it's really funny because you guys are the best. The listeners here, you guys give us the good stories we need to cover, whether it's sports or politics, and we retweet it. We'll move it around on Facebook. like it and comment on it. And that's what this is. That's what the new American media is about, by the way. This is about not just sitting here and being spoon-fed what you're supposed to believe. Yeah, here, we're going to brainwash you. Here's your propaganda. Good morning. What's for breakfast today? A big bowl of propaganda. Are you ready? Here's your propaganda. And you don't get to you can't get up from the table until you've finished consuming your propaganda. Anyway, a sports show is a little bit different, but the point is, it's an interaction. It's back and forth. We want the comments. We want to respond to the comments. We want to think about the comments. So please make sure on the YouTube channel, scroll around. I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of uploads we have over the past 2 years, but there's a lot. Scroll through. If something piques your interest, leave a comment. We read them. We reply to a lot of them. But it's an ongoing conversation. So do us a favor. Follow us on Twitter. We're at American_media_, as well as subscribing to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/The New American Media. Also search The New American Media with spaces in between it, I believe. I think that actually matters. I don't know why. But Facebook, like us. The New American Media on Facebook. Like the page. Share it with some friends. What was it? We're at another milestone, too. What was it? I don't know. It's not even... The point is, we're growing, and we're thrilled that you guys are, and girls, that everybody is out there participating. And we'll get Zach in right now to talk about it. Maybe we'll lead with that. That's how we're going to lead. We're going to lead with Zach's reaction, and then the feedback that a lot of our followers gave Zach. I think it's hilarious. So let's get him in now. Mr. Zak Baris. As I said, lifelong Cleveland sports fan, NBA scout.
Hello?
Zach, you're live on the air. How you doing, buddy?
Exhausted, but good.
Yeah, exhausted. There's a few places I want to start with. And you said exhausted, which gets me thinking about the process. But before we get to the process, because I really want to know what it's like being inside the war room. But by the way, for everybody out there, you can follow Zach on Twitter. He's at ZBaris. That's ZBaris. Let's just start from the beginning of the story, because... You and I talked off air real quick. The Cavaliers selected Anthony Bennett out of UNLV. And then we had some response from Zach. Some of your tweets say, Cavs fans shouldn't be upset with Bennett. Love the kid when I watched him this year. Will be a good NBA player. Just surprised. Then you say, Chris Grant shocked the world 2 years in a row. Then you say, Bennett is a tweener, which worries me about his NBA potential. Good player, but tweeners usually don't work out. Talk to the audience a little bit about the reaction you received to some of your tweets.
Some of them were negative, and I didn't mean it like that. I was just pointing out, and I was especially talking about the Derek Williams thing a couple of years ago in Minnesota. And if the Cavaliers didn't already have a forward in place in Tristan Thompson, I would say it wouldn't be as much of a problem. Tweener guards, you don't have to worry about a guy who's a 1 or a 2 guard as much, or a guy who's between a 2 or a 3. It usually isn't as big of a problem. But the small forward to power forward is where you take a big leap in between, because you're looking at more rebounds. You have to be able to defend in the post more. So that's where it becomes a bigger deal. Bennett's only 6'7". He lists himself at. He was listed at 6'8" on the charts. He was actually the first player I scouted all year. UNLV was the first game I flew up to the Mac Center early, I think it was in early November. He was the first player I scouted all year when he was a projected mid to late first rounder. And I come back after, and my team goes, they go, what do you think about Anthony Bennett? And I go, there's no way we're going to be able to draft this kid. He's a top 5 pick. Is exactly what I said.
Wow.
After watching him, I think he put up 18 and 13 in a game. And there's no way we're going to be able to draft this kid. We're going to have no chance. He's not going to be he'll be in the top 5 guaranteed, is what I said at the beginning of the season. And they said, do you think he's that good? And I said, I know he's that good. He reminds me a lot of an Elton Brand type player. He's going to be a stat sheet stuffer, I'll tell you that. He's going to be one of those guys. He'll be a double-double machine. Now, he does need to slim down a little bit, or get a little more athleticism, because the Cavaliers will need him to play the 3 this year. I know they drafted Karsaev, but still, Bennett is still one of those guys. You already have Thompson in the 4. You don't want to hinder Tristan Thompson's development. He had a fantastic second half of the season last year, and you don't want to mess with that, because Thompson's one of those guys who's very, very raw. Especially, I still remember his high school days in Vegas. He was very, very raw, and he still is. But he had such significant improvement last season. You want to be able to get him on the floor with Anthony Bennett to run the pick and roll, with Kyrie Irving, especially for Bennett. Bennett can create his own shot. He can shoot off the dribble, and the guy can shoot from the arc, too. It reminds me of a little bit more physical version of Derek Williams from a few years ago.
Watching...
which is a good thing.
Yeah, you were a Derek Williams fan right off the bat. I remember that from
Big
last
time.
year.
Well, I mean, I went to Arizona, so the Derek Williams stuff was already there. But I remember, still on the show, I still said the Cavaliers would take Kyrie Irving, and I stuck by that, and I said they should take him. Now, I was wrong on saying that he'd be a multi-time All-Star. I thought that at the time, and I think if Williams gotten into a better situation, I still think he would have been a very good player. But the problem was that they paired him up with Kevin Love, and Williams is more of a 4 than he is a 3, and Love is more of a 4 than he is a 5. So that was the problem. That's where exactly lied there, and that's why I was pointing it out with the Cavaliers. You don't want to get into the same problems. You just drafted this guy number 1 overall.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying Bennett's going to be a bust. I was just making a point. I don't think he'll be a bust. He's going to be one of the guys who can stuff the stat sheet, and he's a perfect fit. He's a very ready NBA player, and he'll be a good fit along Kyrie Irving, especially running the pick and roll. He finally has a partner he can run it with now. You know, the Cavaliers' backcourt seems to be set. At least they're starting backcourt for a while. You know, you didn't piss off Deion Waiters, excuse my language. You know, you didn't piss him off by taking, Victor Oladipo, or, even though I liked Oladipo a lot, I think I think Oladipo will be an incredible NBA player because he can guard the 1, the 2, and the 3 very well. He's a fantastic defender, and I think he's more polished offensively than people give him credit for. But getting back to Bennett, this is a kid who only started playing basketball 7 years ago. He's still learning the game. He's a Canadian kid, and I think he'll work with Tristan. They're both from Toronto. They're both the Canadian kids. I think it'll be a good fit. I'd like to see how the Cavs, I heard Chris Grant said he was going to play Bennett at the 4. Trust me, though, if Bennett's able to play the 3, they're going to stick him at the 3 when they can. It just makes for the best possible lineup.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I mean, especially in the NBA, especially with the Heat did with positionless basketball. There are times now where you see 4 guards in at a time in a game. It's not often, but it'll happen. You'll see the Heat in there with Chalmers, Allen, Wade, and LeBron all at the same time. It happens. You'll see that with basically 3 guards in a game and LeBron just playing point forward. So it's essentially a 4-guard lineup. You're going to see that. You're not going to see a 4-guard lineup like that in Cleveland, but you're going to see a point where the Cavaliers are going to go with a hybrid lineup where, when they play small ball, especially when they're playing small, and you can stick Thompson at the 5 and Bennett at the 4, that'll be interesting to see how that works out. I'm really excited to see that. I think the Cavaliers got one of the best players in the strip. I don't know if he's the best player in the strip. I don't know who will be. Like I said, I brought up exactly about a week or 2 ago about Nerlens Noel.
Yeah.
In a couple of weeks, I brought it up beforehand that he had the character concerns. And I knew last night when Cleveland, didn't pick him in Orlando, I knew he was going to go on a free fall right there. And obviously, if 5 teams were willing to pass on him and New Orleans was willing to trade him, the character concerns were there. He does not, I don't want to personally insult the kid because I haven't had a problem with him. But I had heard stories from the combine, which I was at. I didn't see it personally, but I've heard multiple reports from other players, not wanting to room with Noel, stuff he did while he was there. It just wasn't exactly, a good character evaluation.
Zach, maybe it was not the best job interview that he could have had.
Well, yeah, that's the best way I could put it. But like I said, though, I think Cleveland came out of it. I think they got the guy they wanted to. I think they thought they were going to have to trade up to 13 to get him. I thought the Hawks were going to grab him at one point, and they didn't. So the Cavaliers got exactly who they wanted in that draft without having to trade up to Dallas and take on Sean Marion's horrible $9 million contract to get a guy. So I think they made out like that. And just keep going with the Cavs is, Alan Crabb has been a favorite of mine all season. I talked about him earlier on the show earlier this year. The guy's a lights-out three-point shooter. He would have been a nice backup 2-guard for the Cavs who can come in and shoot the ball. I was kind of disappointed to see that they traded him to Portland. But, like I said, you can't go in there with 4 rookies. And who was their last pick? Was it Carricker from Arizona State, the shooting guard?
Let me triple check that. But I wanted to ask you first though about Sergey. You said he was the one that they wanted.
Like I said, I do not watch European basketball.
Okay.
That's not my forte. I say that over and over again. I will never be a European scout. That's not my game. But from what I've heard about the kid, he's a great three-point shooter. Fantastic three-point shooter. He shot 45% last year in Europe. The kid can shoot lights out. He's a young kid. He's going to be a good NBA player if he pans out. If he can shoot well, he's going to be a good player. I think it was a nice pick by the Cavs. It was very, very low risk. They could have taken a small forward like Jamal Franklin in that spot, who I absolutely love. I love the kid. Tony Snell was available, who the Bulls got at 20. There were some players they could have taken. There was Reggie Bullock from North Carolina. They could have grabbed. But they seem to really want the three-point shooter, which basically spells the end for Omri Caspi. I know all Cavs fans are crying, but
that's disheartening to hear. That hurts me, Zach. That really hurts.
So, but like I said, you get a young kid in there who's going to be cheap. Come in, he's going to be able to put in valuable minutes right away. Cavaliers did a nice job in the draft last night.
Yeah, Carrick Felix was the last pick by the Cavs.
I didn't watch him a ton. I mean, I only went to Arizona State 3 times. He wasn't on my radar, but I had seen him in other games. But I had watched him. He's a long perimeter defender, exactly what the Cavs need and what they lack. He's a long two-guard, and that's exactly what they need. They're not going to need his offensive game right away. They need him for defensive purposes to come out there and stop a good three-point shooter, stop a Ray Allen, stop a guy like that. So I think that worked out nicely for them. I think they got the 3 guys they wanted to in this draft. They didn't have to make any trades, to move up. I assume, though, Chris Grant, if he really would have wanted someone, I'm sure he could have packaged up, 31 and 33 or something else. But I think he was able to stick right where he was and get who he wanted.
How much is it going to help the bench? Are all these players going to be on the Cavs roster next year? Are they going to shed some of their...
I don't exactly know yet. I mean, Felix could wind up in the D-League to start out. That's what happens with a lot of second-rounders. A lot of second-rounders wind up in the D-League.
Absolutely. And so that's why I was wondering, would it have been more helpful to maybe package some of those? And who knows? Who knows what they were trying to do behind the scenes, but they did. They stuck with their guns, and they surprised everybody. And this isn't the first time Grant did it. I mean, I guess Kyrie was Kyrie was mainly
Kyrie wasn't
a
surprise.
consensus.
Tristan Thompson was the surprise.
Yeah, Kyrie, that was a fairly decent consensus. More of a consensus than Nerlens Noel. Wait, maybe not.
Tristan was, the Cavaliers screwed over the Bobcats, 2 years ago. The Bobcats, I believe, were all, I believe they were predicted to take Tristan. That's who they had on the radar all year. They loved Tristan. They wanted with Biyombo instead. And I think they were disappointed in that one. But Tristan was their guy, and the Cavaliers came in and swooped him up. And a lot of people thought that hit the Bobcats taking him at 7, it would have been a reach. But you take a guy where you like the guy. And Tristan, Tristan's first year was a little rough, but he showed signs of improvement. Last year, the first month and a half of the season, he was just god-awful, and you're like, okay, this kid's a bust. And then all of a sudden, he just picks it up, and his PER for the second half of the season was like 18 or 19. He was incredible. He had such a leap forward, and he started developing that little, the little put-in that he has from 8 feet away. It's not a hook shot. It's not even a mini hook. I don't even know what to describe it. It's almost like a floater. It's not a runner even. It's not even a runner, so I don't even know how to describe the shot.
Ooh, Zach, you might get to coin it. You might have to coin his shot if there's not a name.
I'm not going to coin it, but it's just a weird shot, but he was making them, and, from around 8 to 12 feet. And, if he improves this year, which I think he will because he's a smart kid, he's got a lot of athleticism, I think he can make the jump. I just hopefully his confidence doesn't get shot with the Anthony Bennett pick. That's the one thing I'd be worried about, but I don't think it's an end-all.
Okay. Well, let me bounce to this then, because all right, we're covering the Cavs, we're covering the first-round pick. We're talking with Zak Baris, lifelong Cleveland sports fan. You can follow him on Twitter at @ZBaris. That's ZBARIS. I'm thinking this. I want to know a little bit about the process, about the war room, and then what we'll do is maybe we'll hit a reset, and then we'll kind of go through the rest of the picks as far down as you feel like going in the first round. So just explain the process a little bit, because I mean, pick it up from the beginning.
From what I can tell you, basically, it's an 8-month process. It's basically a 9-month process, which starts at the beginning of October. You lay out your board with your top 100 guys on your board. Basically, this is at least what we do. You lay out your guys with your top 100 guys on your board who you're going to be scouting this season. Obviously, there's risers and there's guys who fall. And so you get a place to go every week, and you go to them and you evaluate your players and you adjust your draft board weekly. And we have guys that fall to the top 100. We're done looking at guys that we think that are staying in school, that are basically pushed lower bottom of the board, who we realize we can't waste our time with because we can only scout so many players. So by the end of the year, it formulates into this. The combine, it gets changed around.
Okay, hold on. Let me stop right there at the combine. You're on a team. You're not the only scout for this team. There are several scouts, and it's split up by regions or something like that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you have...
There's regions. There's also national scouts. There's advanced scouting. There's so many different places a scout can go. There's so many different areas and people who scout. whether it's the video coordinator does something, the assistant video coordinator, they're still working on scouting too. So it's basically an organizational. It's through the whole organization that people scout.
Okay,
it's just on smaller and larger levels.
Well, let me ask you this thing, because you talk about the top 100. Does every scout on the team have their personal 100, or you get to go in and shift names up and down?
We sit there. We have our guys, and we sit in there, and every few days, we'll basically be in our draft and looking at our board and indicating who we go. Okay, this guy had an amazing week. I've watched him twice. He's got to be a top 10 pick. There's no doubt in my mind. So we move player A up the board. Especially a guy that shot up the board. Let's just say Victor Oladipo. Oladipo shot up boards this year. At the beginning of the year, he was barely on anyone's radar. And all of a sudden, Indiana was performing. They were on national TV a lot. People were scouting him. He had a couple huge games. Where he had clutch performances, great defensively, and you're sitting there and you're watching this kid in person, you go, wow, this kid's a stud. He's going to be a top 10 pick. Mark my words on that. Let's move him up the board. We're in full agreement in the office when people have seen him. He's moving up ahead of this player.
Okay.
So
well, let me ask you the clever part, the part of it that has me wondering how it works. When there's a consensus, clearly the player goes up. But what if somebody across the table says absolutely not? I completely disagree with that. How is that resolved if it's the same big?
It's asked for an opinion and why. Sometimes it's just not necessarily agreed upon. But usually most people are in full agreement with with everything. Usually, if there's a total disagreement, we have to sit out there and we have to discuss it. If it's 8 against 1, you're going to go with the majority above the minority. It just happens.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is we're going to take that guy and we're like, okay, we're going to put someone else on this particular player because he doesn't like him. He's not a fan. We want to know why this guy's a fan of him.
Okay.
We want to know. So we're going to assign someone else. It happened with me this year where I didn't like some players, and they brought in someone else to come watch them because I wasn't a fan of some particular players, and it becomes a problem sometimes because you already have this. It was like me with Shabazz Muhammad. I watched Shabazz so many times, and so many times I was so frustrated with his performance. I was at one point, I said, I'm done with the kid. He has so much talent, yet either it's Ben Howland's, I'm looking at it, I go, either it's Ben Howland's team in his system, why he's performing so poorly, or is this kid really just that selfish of a player? And it was stuff that has to be looked at. It has to be evaluated upon, so they brought in other people to come look, and luckily other people are in the same agreement with me. But that's not saying Shabazz Muhammad won't be a star. He may have just been in the wrong fit, and he wasn't mature enough. I have nothing bad to say about Shabazz because he's not a bad kid. He's just very, very, let's just put it, overconfident.
That's fair enough. Let me get back because I pulled you off track there. I think you were talking about the 9-month process, and we're up to the combine at this point.
So the combine, you're reevaluating. You're looking at measurements. That's when you get everything official. You see how the player interviews go, which players will rise. Nobody's going to have a meteoric rise up the board because they had a great interview. Nobody's going to shoot up 20 spots. It's not like the NFL draft where the combine matters as much. It's when you start having the individual workouts where guys are willing to go one-on-one with each other is where it starts, the evaluation process starts to make more sense because you go, okay, well, this guy looked great in college, but this guy was the projected 25th pick in our system, just dominated the number 2 overall pick. How did that happen? So we're gonna slide it down a little. Maybe just had a bad workout. Maybe showed up out of shape. We're gonna go back and review tape and see what we really think. There were guys, in Phoenix. When Phoenix passed on Ben McLemore, they passed on him for a reason. He showed up out of shape and got, and Jamal Franklin had a workout that was 100 times better than him.
Well,
so Phoenix passed on Ben McLemore.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You just said that nobody shoots up the board because of an interview. Do they drop off the board or do they fall significantly?
Yes. Look at a guy like Nerlens Noel. He was a projected number 1 overall pick in the draft during the lottery. I said there's no way this kid's not going number 1, bearing some unforeseen, consequences with his knee. Some people wouldn't touch his knee. Luckily we didn't even have to worry about Noel. We wasn't in the conversation. We never had to deal with Nerlens Noel. But I had heard stuff from the combine, which was in Chicago, and I heard stories from other players, saying, I'm not even going to get into them because I'm not going to repeat them.
Fair enough, yeah.
They weren't nice things to say about the kid. Let's just put it this way.
It did cast him in a better light. It wasn't something that said, hey, it's good that all the people surrounding this kid are thinking so highly of him. It was the opposite of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was, there's a reason why he slipped to number 6. I mean, he went behind Cody Zeller.
Yeah, that is really surprising to me.
And Alex Len. I never was buying the Alex Len number 1 Cleveland stuff, ever. I was never buying that. I just didn't understand it. I believe I spoke with you last week and kind of explained it to you that if you have a chance, Zydrunas Ilgauskas was a very good player in this league. But was Zydrunas Ilgauskas in any draft ever considered to be the number 1 overall pick? Absolutely not.
No. Very good player. And once he got healthy, he was consistent, he was good, but not a number 1 pick, no. Well, the point you made is that this kid's only been playing basketball for a few years. The upside that he has in Anthony Bennett, would you say he might have more of an upside because he has so much more to learn? Do you think he might have the most upside?
I think he has a lot of upside, but his potential will lie somewhere in the 2010 range. I tend to think he's going to put up Elton Brand type numbers. Reminds me a lot of Elton Brand. But I think he'll be able to play the 3. And I think if he's able to play the 3, he's going to have a great career.
Okay, I think we were at the point where at the NBA Combine now they're doing one-on-one drills, and that's where things really start to happen.
Yeah, and then that's where you can start making more evaluations. But a lot of guys, a lot of top 5 picks don't want to participate in one-on-one drills because they realize, they go, I'm a top 5 pick. What do I need to do this for? I'm going to be selecting the top 5 no matter what. Why the hell am I going to do this? Why am I going to go risk my chance of being drafted in the top 5 so this guy, this idiot behind me who's going to be the projected 25th pick, can go take my spot and rise up draft force? It's not happening. So that's why a lot of guys want to. I mean, you look at Tim Hardaway, a guy that was a mid-second round pick, that basically, and I'm just going to say the word, worked his ass off, and dominated in 4-on-4s, 3-on-3s, 1-on-1s. He shot up the board in the first round because of what he did. He was overlooked at Michigan because he wasn't the number 1 option. You had Trey Burke, you had Glenn Robinson, who Glenn Robinson would have been a top 10 pick in this year, and Mitch McGary would have been a lottery pick. So you had 3 guys ahead of him, especially in the tournament when everybody's watching, that were getting the ball before Hardaway. So Hardaway was a 4th option on a very, very great team. And that's why he took a back seat. It wasn't he was a bad player. It was just like, he just kind of went unnoticed. You're taking, guys like Trey Burke were just, and McGary were just like, catching the eye. And so Hardaway was forgotten about. So he was a mid-second round pick. But, I mean, on 1-on-1 and 4-on-4s and 3-on-3s, he was dominating. He had some of the best performances I've seen. And this guy went back up the boards, and he was drafted by the Knicks. I was very happy for Tim. It's nothing. He's a good kid. He's respectful. His dad played in the NBA. He's got the pedigree. And if he can improve on his ball handling, he's going to be a great player in the NBA. I think he's a good fit with the Knicks, and I'm glad they took him.
For example, then, because he busted his ass, he worked really hard, and he impressed people at the Combine. Despite the season. Well, I mean, you go back to Deion Waiters, same thing. I mean, he was coming off the bench over at Syracuse. So there wasn't. You didn't really have enough to make a judgment on him. Apparently, Chris Grant did. But where would you say Hardaway was ranked before he really started dominating at the Combine?
I had him down at about 40. I had him mid-second round.
Okay, that's a pretty big jump.
After the Combine, I put him in the top 22, top 20. I had him over there in my top 22 after watching him. His individual workouts were great too, though. I mean, like I said, he just put himself together well. It was very impressive to say the least. He looked very good, and you couldn't come away more impressed.
So in a way, are you saying that he came off as a professional, whereas watching Shabazz Muhammad all year
he came off as a baller too. The kid can just ball.
Okay.
I mean, he proved that. I mean, he was dominating. Like I said, in the competitions, he was having amazing workouts, and it shot him up boards, And I have no problem with a guy like that. He basically just got lost in the fold at Michigan because they had so many other stars.
Well, kind of like James Harden over in OKC.
It's not that Harden was lost in the fold there. Harden was a sixth man because of an idiotic coach. I'm sorry, I don't mean to call Scott Brooks an idiot, but some of his moves were baffling to say the least. I mean, Harden's not a guy you keep on the bench. You don't need a sixth man like Harden off your bench. He could have been putting up 20-something in the starting lineup, in Oklahoma City could have had a title this year. This was their year to win.
Oh, we've talked about that before.
Westbrook went down too, but I think if they had Harden and Durant, I still think they would have been in the finals.
Wow. Well, okay. Back to the one-on-one drills where Hardaway impressed. That's where we're at in the process, because I want to build up to when you get into the war room and what that experience is like.
So basically, it's just all the workouts, all the individuals coming into your facility, and you're going and interviewing their coaches. You're interviewing people that are around him, and and you're saying, okay, well, this guy's going to have a jump on the board. He's a great player. Let's move him up. And coaches a lot of times are going to be brutally honest about their players. And that's the thing about Coach Beeline. He's done a great job with these kids. In Michigan. So
when you say brutally honest, if they have character concerns, the coaches usually just let you have it.
There's sometimes a coach. Yeah, there's sometimes a coach. I still remember we had a player down in Arizona who was a projected lottery pick after his freshman year. I'm not going to mention any names. And after his sophomore year, was basically told he wasn't wanted back by Lute Olson.
Huh.
Was told he wasn't wanted back, and when it came to draft day, he went in the late second round. This is the kid who was a projected lottery pick. He was out of the NBA within a year or two. I don't even remember how long he lasted, but it wasn't long. And it was because he was a jerk. He didn't respect the coach. Coach will say something. If the kid doesn't respect the coach, he'll say something. They have no problem saying something. Not always are they going to be brutally honest, but a lot of times you can get a good read. You can feel for the people around him.
And you're investing a lot of money in this. You got to get it right. You got to know what the character of the person is.
It's not even the money you're investing. It's this is the guy who could help you compete for a championship,
right?
Or help build your organization around. Usually when you're picking at 25th, though, you're not looking at a guy that's going to destroy your franchise. You can cut him or send him to the D League, if he's that bad. But I'm talking about guys picking the top 5, top 10. These are guys you want. Like. When Minnesota last night selected Trey Burke, you're just like, they got a hard worker. This kid can ball. He's going to be a very good player in the NBA. I'm not trying to act like a Michigan homer because I'm not, and I'm an Ohio State fan. I'm an Ohio State fan. But I do respect Michigan basketball and what they accomplished this year. I have 110% respect for them.
Oh, it was a great year this year. Yeah.
They had a great year. And a guy like Trey Burke, any team will be lucky to have him. Utah's getting a stud. This is a guy who could have easily been the number 2 overall pick in the draft. The only reason, if this guy was 6'2", 6'3", he would have easily been the number 1 overall pick in the draft. But he wasn't. He's 5'11", and that's why he slipped. But the kid can ball. You watch him take over games this year, especially in the NCAA tournament. He was fantastic. This is a guy who didn't even get a scholarship from his hometown team, Ohio State.
Chip on the shoulder. Kind of a chip on the shoulder kind of kid.
Imagine having to play that high school basketball team with Jared Solinger and Trey Burke on the same team.
Oh, hey, you know what? We had to play St. Ignatius in the Ohio football state title game. So yeah, I know there are some crazy teams out there, but no. Okay. Let me get back because I want to break all these guys down in a little bit, but still, now you're talking after the combine. You're talking to coaches. You're talking to people that surround them, building up to the draft.
And then the weeks lead, and then you just have the days and the weeks, and then it becomes the days leading up to the draft. You're still reworking your board. You're hearing things. You're still bringing guys in for workouts. And then finally, 4 days ago on Monday, we had a full breakdown of the board at the office. We're breaking down each individual player who's on our board. We go, all right, we're taking this kid. We say what we're hearing around the league from other executives. I have friends in rival organizations who tell me different things about their organization. So I'm going, I heard this about this player, about his workout in Brooklyn. It didn't go so well. Why didn't it? We're hearing a rumor about this player. We're not told what it is, but something's going around about this player. We need to know what it is. So we start to investigate. We look at that. We break down every little piece. I worked a 74, 75-hour work week from Monday through Thursday through last night. I slept in my office on Wednesday. So it's been a long, long week. I love when you call me and you're like, are you all right to talk? And I go, yeah, I got 4 hours of sleep on the plane this morning. I'm good to go.
Totally recharged, ready to rock.
I'm all right. I'm good to go. And, that's just the life, and people are like, well, why do you want a job with this much stress? And I go, it's great. You get an off season, you get everything with it. But, this is the time. There are crunch times. It's like accountants have tax season.
Yeah.
This is the equivalent to my tax season. I'm not an accountant. So, this is the equivalent to it for a guy in the NBA, especially in my position. So this is what it came down to, and it's just the life, and now I can go and live my life freely for the next few months after the NBA Summer League, in a couple weeks.
Okay.
I'm still assembling, we're still assembling a team for that. So I still, I have a couple days off now, which is a much-needed break, and, flew back to L.A. this morning. I was supposed to go to New York or Cleveland. I decided back to L.A. It's where I need to be. It's just for the time being.
All right, then I guess in the next few weeks we're finally going to go out and we're finally going to go out in the next few weeks. Then I think it's time.
We'll have to.
Okay.
We'll have to.
So you put in the 75-hour work week. You're sleeping at your desk. Paint us the picture now of what it means when Stern walks out there, the clock starts, everything begins. Like, what's going on with text messages, with emails, with television?
You have your cell phone there in case you're getting text messages from other league executives. So it's out there. But they go, for the friends, they go, do not respond to friends' text messages. Do not respond. I'm sitting there on Twitter knowing we're not making a trade up. I knew we weren't making a trade. We were done working the lines at that point. If anything, I'm not the one working on a trade anyway. That's the general manager's responsibility and the assistant GM and the team president. It's their responsibility to go out there and find a trade. It's not my job. Nobody's calling me about a trade. I'm sitting there. They go, do not disclose anything on Facebook or Twitter. They go, if you're up, that's where you can talk to your friends. Do not give any information away. Do not say anything. We find out the picks, obviously, right when they're called in to the league office. We find out who the pick is, and that's when we get knowledge of it. And then the reporters get knowledge of it about 3 minutes before the pick. We get it right as soon as the pick is made, and they get it about a minute to 2 minutes later. Is when guys like Adrian Wojnarowski get it. They get it right. They get it about a minute after the pick is made, and then it goes on ESPN about 3 minutes later.
Okay.
So I was messaging a couple of friends. They go, "Who are the Cavs picking?" I knew a couple of minutes before the draft, and one of my friends just goes, "I swear to God, if you tell me," and I was like, "I won't say a thing." I texted him. I messaged him. I go, "It's just not who you think." I go, "Just be surprised." He goes, "What do you mean by that?" I go, "Just be surprised."
Well, it was a surprise for sure. It absolutely was. So
nobody knew. The Cavaliers held on to that thing though until the final thing. Like we had heard the rumor of who they were picking. They're just like, I was like, Anthony Bennett. Okay, I was like shocked because I was like, just proves mock drafts know nothing. I mean, you had guys like, it's funny. I like reading a lot of the media streets because you find out a lot of stuff that isn't true, and you find out what guys are BS. And guys like Chris Sheridan was holding on. He was pulling this.
Oh, hang on. You still there, Zach? Okay. I think we may have lost Zach. Let's see if we can get him back on real quick. Unless it goes right to voicemail because the battery has died.
Yeah.
All right. Chris Sheridan was holding on to the pick.
He was holding on saying Alex Len all week, and Joe Kotosh from Cleveland were going, it's going to be Alex Len. It's going to be Alex Len. I've been hearing all week that it wasn't going to be Alex Len. I heard the only way the Cavaliers were going to take Alex Len was in a swap with Phoenix at number 5 or Charlotte at number 4.
To add extra assets and still get somebody.
No matter what, I knew the Cavaliers would not be drafting Len at number 1. I thought they would be working out a trade. If they did, it didn't surprise me that they liked Alex Len. But I said if they were going after Len, it was going to be at pick number 4 or 5 or even 6. They were going to go and grab Len. But it was not going to be at number 1. I knew they weren't going to pick him at number 1. I would have been more shocked to see Len picked at number 1 than Anthony Bennett.
Were you shocked? Well, yeah, a lot of
I was
people.
very surprised because nobody had been talking about Anthony Bennett, and we just didn't see the fit. That was things like, okay, we saw the McLemore one, but McLemore showed up out of shape the workouts, and he didn't look good in individual performances, which caused him to fall to number 7. When this is a guy who was originally projected no lower than 2 or 3. Oh, no way he's getting past Orlando. He just didn't show up in shape. Oladipo showed up in shape to all of his workouts. He looked fantastic. I was banking on the Cavs selecting Oladipo and surprising people too at that point. When people asked me during the week, my friends were going, "Who should the Cavs draft?" I go, "If it were me, I would take Victor Oladipo." I said, no matter what, you're getting a defensive stud out of the draft. He's not Tony Allen. He's better offensively. Tony Allen can't shoot. Oladipo can shoot. He scored. He's a very underrated scorer who could be a decent performer, at the next level offensively. And no matter what, you're getting a stud defensively for Mike Brown. So I said the Cavaliers, Oladipo would be a nice fit. It doesn't necessarily stick waiters on the bench, it's just, like I said, Bennett's not a bad pick for the Cavaliers. They made out well.
Well, you know who did say it? Tim Legler on ESPN. He said that that's who should be the number 1 pick. I saw it maybe a couple minutes before the draft started. I'm like, huh, really? Okay.
Who, Bennett or Oladipo?
Anthony Bennett. He said it right before the draft. It's kind of surprising.
I give him credit. A lot of these guys, though, the former players are the best ones to analyze picks because they played the game. They know what they're talking about. Guys like Jay Billis, fantastic. He knows what he's talking about. And, it's guys, and they're sitting up there and go, why do they have Bill Simmons analyzing the draft? Bill Simmons is a fantastic writer, but the guy should not be on TV expressing his opinions. He writes some of the greatest sports stories you've ever heard. But I don't know if he's a basketball analyst. He's not a true professional. The guy's never worked in a front office, and he's never been a player. He's a writer. Which, he wasn't even a beat writer. He's just a fantastic writer. It doesn't make you an expert on the sport. It doesn't, by any means.
Hey, being an expert, by the way, let me ask you this thing real quick. Just still on the Anthony Bennett thing, is it a lock for you to project to next year's draft that another Canadian's going to go number one, barring injury?
I'm predicting that right now, but I mean, let's say
barring injury.
Let's say Wiggins has. I mean, don't forget 2 years ago, Harrison Barnes before the season was the true cut number 1 overall pick. Not even a doubt in anyone's mind. Supposed to be the next Michael Jordan. Barnes had a bad freshman year, didn't even come out. There was no consensus number 1 a couple of years ago. Everybody said there wouldn't be an all-star coming out of that draft either. And look at the solid players you already have. You already have Kyrie Irving, Tristan Thompson, Jonas Valanciunas, he had a good year. Kawhi Leonard. Then you have guys in Europe for the Bulls like Nikola Mirotic, who's going to be, mark my words when I say, is a very good player. There were a lot of good picks in that draft, in the 2011 draft a couple of years ago. Turns out, Irving's the only superstar to come out of there. But guys like Kawhi Leonard were pivotal on a championship, on a team that took the Heat to 7 games, on a championship team. There were a lot of good players in that draft. It wasn't as bad as people were making it out to be.
Right.
It just wasn't top-heavy. There just wasn't a lot of top-tier talent, other than Irving. But at the time, Kyrie Irving, people were going, oh, this guy will never be an all-star. At best, he'll be a Kevin Johnson. Kevin Johnson's a great point guard in this league. But they were saying at best he'll be Kevin Johnson. He's already at that point where he's reached Kevin Johnson status. Kyrie Irving, according to ESPN, when they did their player rank, had him as the 11th best player in the league. That's about where I'd have him too.
Wow. Above D Wade at this point. Interesting.
He's only going to get better. And, people have to look at it and say, okay, we can't judge a draft before everybody's picked, And, Andrew Wiggins hasn't played a second of college basketball. The guy, for all we know, could tear his ACL and be out for the season and not,
That's fair. That's fair. I was saying barring injury.
There's a lot of top-tier talent. Right now, Andrew Wiggins is the consensus number 1. He's fantastic. Ever since I watched him at the Hoop Summit in 2010, I think it was, I was just blown away by the kid, like literally blown away. I said, who's this kid again? I said, I cannot wait to watch this kid. I even saw some of his games at Huntington Prep. Like, I had to see the kid. Like, he was that good. He's a freak. And, he's still not the best jump shooter yet, but, either was LeBron in high school. LeBron's jump shot was weak, if anything, in high school. It was bad.
Yeah, it was.
I remember the Oak Hill SVSN game, and I think he started the game 0 for 8 or 0 for 9. He looked terrible, and then he started, draining everything. But, these guys will always need work, but Andrew Wiggins comes from the perfect pedigree. His dad's a former NBA player, and his mom is a former Olympic track star.
Yes, that sounds about right.
It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah.
The DNA doesn't get better than that. And so you have to look at it from that standpoint, going, right now Andrew Wiggins is the projected number 1. But that doesn't mean a guy like Aaron Gordon, who's going to Arizona next year, couldn't leapfrog him, or the Harrison twins. A guy like Jabari Parker, whoever everybody 3 years ago was going, oh, this guy's the next Michael Jordan. Now Jabari's in the more 3 to 5 range next year for picks. Jabari Parker's a great player, but is he Andrew Wiggins? No. Is he Aaron Gordon? Maybe not. So this changes around all the time. Let's see how this goes in this next college season. There's a lot of top-tier talent. It's going to be really fun. You also had a lot of guys stay at school. You had guys, Marcus Smart at Oklahoma, who would have been the number 2 overall pick. Guaranteed he would have been the top 3 this year had he come out. That shocked everyone that he was going back to school. Will it pay off? Maybe it won't. I don't know how it could get any better for him, unless he goes number 1. But, Aaron Gordon, who's projected the next Blake Griffin, is going to Arizona. I've seen Aaron Gordon play. The kid's an absolute stud. There are a lot of fantastic players in this draft. Fantastic. And, you even guys like Mitch McGarry could go up. Glenn Robinson was a projected top 10 this year. Next year's draft, I'm thinking the entire lottery, you're looking at the potential of 9 All-Stars in next year's draft, maybe even more.
Oh.
From what I've seen. It's just a talented crop of kids.
Huh. Okay. Let's do this then. So I want to wrap up the experience. I love bouncing around the way that we do. I actually love it. I think it's more fun than a linear conversation.
Being in the draft room on draft night, you're sitting there and you're finding out the picks before, and you're hearing proposed trades to you guys, to other teams. Teams want to come in and they want to buy your pick, or they're offering up, let's just say 24 for 21. What do they want?
Okay, pause right there. Are people literally walking into your room, or they're on a TV screen?
No.
They're calling.
This is all on phone calls.
Okay.
So you're getting something. We're going. Okay, well, we'll give you the 24th for the 20th pick, let's just say. And you're like, well, what are you offering in return? Like, we'll give you an extra second rounder. And if you're a team with the 20th pick, you're sitting there going, well, what the hell do we need an extra second rounder for? We don't want a late second round pick. He's never going to make the roster. We're going in here as a playoff roster as it is. We don't need that. So we go, no, we feel our guy won't be there at 24. We're going to pick our guy at 20, and that's what we're sticking to.
And how often does that happen? How many times do you guys? And what happens? Does the room do like a Zach Morris timeout from Saved by the Bell, and everybody stops and says, "Hold on, a trade's been proposed"?
No, it's listening, and the GM has to decide right then and there. He doesn't have a lot of time to think about it. Going, no. But if a team in front of us, let's say a team in front of us would have drafted our guy, then we call up and go, "Listen, we have a proposed trade for you. If the guy that you guys still want on the board, sometimes a team will take a player, knowing that another team wants him so they can facilitate a trade."
And there were a lot of trades this year.
That's why I was surprised Dallas last night didn't select Carcea. They kept moving down, and I was shocked when they didn't grab him. And I believe they wound up grabbing Shane Larkin, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, let me ask you real quick, Carcea, what kind of player is he going to be?
He's going to be a good wing player. He's a good three-point shooter. He's just a really, really good shooter.
Well, give me a few names, like a comparable game.
I can't give you a name because I haven't seen him play.
Okay.
I've just, like I said, from what I've heard about him, I haven't heard any comparisons so far as to what type of player he will be, and I can't speculate because I don't know.
Fair enough. Okay.
And I'm not going to just make an assumption and go, oh, he's the next Danny Ferry. I can't say that because I don't know. I haven't seen the kid play, and I'm not going to go in pretend to evaluate a guy.
Hey, that makes two of us. I'm not familiar with this game. I'm hardly familiar with Anthony Bennett's game.
I don't. When the Milwaukee Bucks grabbed last night, when they grabbed the Greek guy, my friend goes, "Here's the Milwaukee Bucks. Who are they going to draft?" And I type in I just hit the home key on my keyboard. I go, "There you go." And he goes, "What's this?" I go, "I don't know how to spell his name." That's like I just typed in DFK. I didn't know the guy's name, and I was like, I've never seen him play some Greek guy, and I was like, I know nothing about the guy. So, I'm not going to go over there. And it was funny because my friend goes, "Oh, you almost got the spelling right."
Nice.
There's no vowels in the guy's name.
Well, there were a lot of trades, so that's what you're saying. The trades are proposed. The GM only has a split second to kind of make a decision, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah, so basically what would have happened last night let's say our guy gotten picked 5 picks earlier than we wanted him.
Okay.
Then we're calling and we go, okay, we need a trade because this is the kid we really want. We've been having our eye on him for the last couple weeks. We feel he can make our roster complete. We're very close to a championship as it is. Let's go and get this kid. And, if we have to offer up a projected first next year or a conditional pick and, we'll offer up a couple of second rounders, in the deal, or sometimes we'll offer up a player. But fortunately, we didn't have that case last night. We were able to land our guy when we wanted him.
And does that make for smooth sailing in the room? Is it just like a sigh of relief?
It eases all the tension because you're just like, after we made the pick, everybody's like, okay. Everybody's looking around going, we got our guy. That's what we wanted. That's what we got. And you're just sitting there at the end going, we worked 9 months for this. It's not that simple, but you're just like thinking like, wow, over the past 72 hours, or 80 hours, whatever it is, you're like sitting there just like, I worked nonstop. I got to watch the Blackhawks game the other night. Got to watch the game 6 of the Stanley Cup. Got to watch that great finish. And now it's back to work, And, I'm not the biggest hockey fan, but I do like hockey, and it was fun to watch. And, it's just sitting there, you're thinking to yourself, like, what if we get screwed over? We need option A, we need option B, we need option C, and we need option D, E, and F. We need it all the way down. But, it's funny because our big board is going off right there with all of our draft board. All of our guys are coming off in the wrong order at the first, 10 picks of the draft. Because we have one player ranked number 2, and he's going number 1, and we have, the 6th overall player going number 3, or the 10th overall player going number 4.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this then. not what your team, where you had them ranked, but you personally. Was it all askew for you in the top 10?
Oh, yeah, it was completely askew. But, I mean, like I said, I had Ben McLemore ranked lower over the last couple weeks. I had lowered Ben McLemore down. I had lowered Nerlens Noel. I put Noel down to 4. Granted, I was shocked the Bobcats didn't take Nerlens Noel. I mean, Cody freaking Zeller's a good player, but Noel's potential is through the roof compared to Zeller.
Well, we're gonna see how it works out. I led the show saying, it's funny with legacies and Chris Grant and, Michael Jordan, anybody. You never know what's going to happen with the players until you give them several years to develop. And if there's injuries, you just never know on draft night. Pick the winners and losers. We're just guessing.
Yeah, I mean, Mel Kiper does it every year, and look what it turns out to be. I love seeing these guys' grades on the draft, and you go back and analyze it a year later. I don't remember what the Cavaliers got for the Kyrie Irving, Tristan Thompson one, but I know it wasn't significantly high.
Yeah, well, that's why you play the games. That's why you play the games. I'm interested to see how this happens, but you know what? Let's do this. Is there anything else? Anything else cool about? And here's a question I was wondering regarding the draft night in the war room. Do you guys all party afterward, or do you just collapse and sleep?
You have a couple drinks and you celebrate because it's over.
Right.
And it was, it's a long time coming. But, I mean, it was at the point where I had to catch a 6:50 flight this morning back home to L.A. It wasn't exactly, and I had to drive last night. I'm fortunate enough to have a car, out there, but I couldn't get drunk. Nor did I want to. I had to be at the airport this morning, at 4:30 this morning, in a city with semi-bad traffic, so I had to be there. It's just a lot to go through, and it's a lengthy process. But, like you said, at the end of the day, it's a good job, well done. And you feel good about yourself afterwards. And, literally last night, you just had the sense of relief coming off going, we made it. It's over.
You got your guy. Well,
but we still have the second round, too. The second round, we got who we wanted in the second round, too. So we were happy about it. We didn't have to trade up. There were a couple of guys that slipped that I was shocked to see them slip as far as they did. And I don't know why, because there's some players I really like, and I think some teams got some nice skills in the second round.
Well, the Cavs had pick 1 and 3 in the second round.
Yeah, I mean, personally, like I said, if it were me, I would not have traded out in Crabbe. I would have kept Crabbe. I like Crabbe a lot. He's going to be a great three-point shooter.
Well, what do you think the reason was for it? Why do you think they did it?
They didn't want to go in with 4 rookies, and I just think Chris Grant wanted to stockpile assets for the future in case he ever has to move up again. And, I don't think he got what he wanted in this draft, so he forced his hand a little bit and then was basically forced to trade it.
Okay. Well, all right, let's do this then. Let's press pause, brief station identification break here on the TNAM Radio Network. You're listening to The Unhappy Hour. I'm your host, Brian Engelman. Our guest is lifelong Cleveland sports fan and NBA scout Zak Baris, who just wrapped up. Zak, this is your first NBA season, first NBA draft, correct? Or am I selling you short here?
Correct.
Okay.
No, you're correct.
Yeah, just triple checking. I didn't want to sell you short, but everybody, do yourselves a favor. If you like NBA stuff, go ahead and follow Zak on Twitter. He's at ZBaris. That's ZBARIS. And, of course, on our side, go on youtube.com/The New American Media. Subscribe to our channel. Go on Twitter. We're at American_media_. Check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com, and search The New American Media on Facebook and like our page because we like it when you do that. Brief station identification break, and Zak, I think what we'll do like a lightning round. We're just gonna tear through the picks. I know we've gotten into a few of them a little bit, but how are they going to mesh with the coach, or how are they going to play off of the other teammates they have, or any thoughts we have? We'll just kind of go through several of the other players in the first round here. We'll be right back on the other side. Thanks for listening. This is The Unhappy Hour.
You are listening to The New American Media.